Let's talk about the basics of knife sharpening today. Back it up a little bit. And this is all really just about guided sharpening. It applies some to freehand, but that's a little different. It's a little more artistic than science. Trying to hold the edge steady and all that. So anyway, with guided sharpening and everything, stability and repeatability is paramount. The whole idea is you're going through each stroke, even, is the knife should not move, the angle should not move. Of course, unless you're trying to do a convex edge, which vastly increases the amount of time it takes to remove the scratches from the last stone. It's much faster if it's a small flat edge than a radiused edge. So the first thing we're going to talk, I guess, I've chosen to use a table with magnets as my clamping mechanism, which works on most knives. It fails at ceramic, and hollow grinds give it trouble too. But we've got 2 points here to locate it, and the magnets hold the hopefully a large flat surface against the blade table. And I've got the magnets right under a 20 thousandths thick piece of rubber on this. So the magnets have maximum hold being very close to the steel, and the rubber gives it a good adhesion. And of course, the hardness and the type of rubber is changed to optimize it for the adhesion. When I'm flipping the knife from one way or the other, I usually line up a spot on the knife, or sometimes I'll put a marker on the knife so I can line it up right at the edge of the sharpener to make sure I repeat. I'll put it against the center and then push it up against the outside edge. These 3-point guides are not unique to mine, that's for sure, and I'm not the one that came up with them first. Mine's a little different than the Hapstone in the way it works, but it all works the same in the end. So with the sharpener, and then of course everything needs to be as stiff as possible. With guided sharpening, since you're clamping, I see so many times they will just barely clamp on the edge of the blade. And the more the clamp contact to the blade, the better. And putting rubber in there or anything that will allow the knife to move at all is a bad idea. Sure, it will keep it from scratching the blade, but as you're using different pressures, whether you're roughing, doing your finished stones, the blade will flex. Many of the the clamps will flex a little too. So, and you want, like I said, as much contact as possible. So as you tighten down the clamp, all of the clamp should be in contact with the knife blade, starting with the tips, and then tighten it down until the back of the clamps down on the blade too. And that'll give you the best, at least hold the knife with the clamp the best. So the next thing we need to talk about, compensating. I came to appreciate it quite slowly, unfortunately. It took really the microscope for me to get that lesson clued in. But compensating will change, the reason for compensating is with this knife, 1/10 of a degree is equal to 10 thousandths difference in stone thickness. And if you're doing, and that's with 8 inches from the pivot center to the edge of the table. As that distance changes, that number will change too. And I feel that for roughing, within 10 or 15 thousandths is good, but if you're doing your finished stones, the closer you are to 0, the better. And so most angle cubes are only good for 1/10 of a degree. So 10 thousandths of an inch is really pushing it. And it's not like, it's a 10 thousandths of an inch range that you will achieve with that angle cube. And it won't repeat. It repeats within 10 thousandths of an inch. I like to use the mechanical method, and I always put a feeler gauge on top of the abrasive on my stone when I use my compensator. That way, if I want to make minute changes, I can use a different feeler gauge. It also protects not only the abrasive from the stone, from the metal, but it protects the metal from the abrasive too. This is also a good idea with the finer stones, I guess, because it's easier to clean to make sure you're not contaminating it. It's more of an issue with strops than the fine stones, but that's how I like to compensate. You need large enough flat surfaces on your compensator to actually do it comfortably. If the surface is too small and you can barely feel it, that's probably not a good idea. Need something better. Which brings up the idea of stone thickness. Your stones need to be all the same thickness too. Of course, if your stone is different from one end to the other, that'll give you a slight convex edge that your next stone will be trying to either clean up or whatever. So you don't need to have high quality calipers, but ones that just, as long as you can measure one spot and they repeat, that's all you need, because you don't care what the thickness is. You only care that you can compare one spot to another. And you need to check it, 3 spots, say. And you also need to check the side to side, just because it's, when you check the thickness on, doesn't mean that side to side it could be out too. So those stones were pretty good. Here's one, and again, when I dress my stones, I do measure them and check and try to dress them flat. If I'm measuring one end thick, I'll work on that end, try and wear a little more off one end, the thick ends. So it's like this is 248, 250, 243, but being the 80 micron, that's fine. Here we go, 246 here, 250, so that's getting a little something you'd want to watch out for. 247, and then right at the end is 242. So this stone definitely, when I'm dressing it, I would want to try and improve that. So let's talk oil, water, glycerin, whatever. I do believe you need a lubricant on diamond. Even with diamond, all stones, I think, need a lubricant. Pretty much all cutting methods do better with a lubricant, unless you're using high heat with machining steel. Sometimes lubricants are bad there, but that's mainly because the carbide will crack as it cools off and heats up. So I use a mineral oil. I like mineral, or when I use oil, I'll use a light mineral oil. What I've gone with is, it's called white mineral oil. And the reason is mineral oil is non-toxic, which is a big thing, I think. It works just as well as any other oil, I believe. And the white oil is very thin. It's also very purified. Again, contamination. You kind of worry about contaminants and whatever you're using as a lubricant. This is just kind of a standard laxative mineral oil, but it's too thick. It really is. It won't wash the swarf off well enough. And then this is glycerin. This is another thing I've tried. It's actually a little thicker than the mineral oil. This is water soluble, so you can thin it with water, but being that water soluble and with water, that will slowly evaporate as you're using it. And that's the beauty of the mineral oil, is it doesn't evaporate, so you don't have to keep reapplying it. I usually use water with dish soap in it. And, oh, hell, before we get to there, here's a couple stones. When I was taking photos for the video on diamonds, I was putting mineral oil on it to get it to be translucent and shows the diamonds in it better. I did the same on this Venev stone. And the Venevs will soak. They'll absorb either water or the oil. So if you're going to go with oil on your Venevs, you're probably committed to sticking with oil. With the matrix stones, you're not committed with it. It did stain it. This is after I washed it off with soap and water, but I haven't used it yet. This will not cause a problem as long as you use enough dishwashing detergent in your water. And here's one, after I used oil on it, I then washed them off, and the next time I used them, there's still kind of a sheen of oil on it. So I used extra dishwashing detergent liquid on it, and I got some strange, it seems like it made the stone more aggressive. It definitely seemed like it was cutting faster. And then I got these strange cleaned up lines in it. So that's something I want to check out in the future, is trying something like 3 parts water and 1 part dishwashing liquid in a bottle as a lubricant, because it also will evaporate more slowly and last longer, and it really works well to clean the stones. So oil versus water or glycerin. The important thing is it's thin enough and it allows the swarf to wash off. You don't want the swarf to build up. And that's a bigger deal the finer the stones go. Okay, I think that's enough for this video. I don't want to make it too long, and let's break it up into bite-sized pieces we can digest in a single setting. So stay tuned for the next 1, 2, 3. There will be quite a few. There's a lot to go over. Thank you. Bye.